Daf Yud Amud Beis, begin Daf Yud Amud Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. We learned previously the Brisa said that all the Lishkos that are in the Mikdash, they did not have a mezuzah except for the Lishkos Parhedron. That's the shlit of the Chomim, that the other offices, the other chambers did not have to have mezuzah, but the Lishkos Parhedron did, because that was the base dir of the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol was sequestered there 7 days before Yom Kippur. He lived there. It required a mezuzah. Rabbi Yehuda Taina, there were many Lishkos in the Mikdash. The Levim were guarding. They had Lishkos chambers, and they didn't have a mezuzah over there. So why should you say that the Lishkos Parhedron should have to have a mezuzah? It's not because it had a chiyuv of mezuzah, and as the Gemara explained, and the Gemara the first shot in the Gemara to explain that is that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a dira that's not for year-round, it's only used for 7 days of the week, it's not meant to be used for all year round, is not called a dira. So he held that Lishkas Parhedron was a gzera. It was a gzera that people shouldn't think that the Kohen Gadol is locked up in a jail. So that's why they had a mezuzah over there to give it the appearance of a dira. So based on thus far, the Gemara, the explanation is that the Rabbi Yehuda holds that a dira that is not a year-round dira is not called a dira to be mechuyev in a mezuzah, whereas the Rabbanan hold that it is. But Eisvei Abaya, however, Abaya asks a question from the following Mishnah. It says, Sukkah Hachag B'chag, produce that was brought into a sukkah on sukkahs. Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev, Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayev to be mafresh the Yomi Masechet for Chachamim Paiter. Chacham say you're potter. The din is that newly harvested grain, then in order to eat from it, you have to be mafresh the Yomi Masechet. Prior to that, it's tevel, and it's also ba'achila. However, as long as it hasn't been processed, meaning to finish the processing and being brought into the house by the vidoy of the maasros, it says bi'ati hakodesh min habayis, meaning the chiyuv of hafrasha comes after there was a kviyas. Then it was brought into the house, it was processed and brought into the house. Then there is an absolute chiyuv to be mafresh Yomi Masechet. Prior to that, one can snack on it, either in achilas arai. Rabbi Yehuda says, bringing the produce into a sukkah on sukkahs is considered bringing it to a house. So the sukkah is considered to be a dira house. But Chacham Paicher, Chacham says potter. V'tanei Allah, and we learned on that the following, that Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev be'eruv u'mezuzah u'b'maiser. So the Brisa elaborates and says that Rabbi Yehuda is Mechayev the sukkah hachag b'chag in an eruv. If there's a person living in the sukkah and there's houses in the courtyard, then he obligates them in order to carry from the houses to the courtyard. And in the courtyard, they have to have eruv chatzeros. They have to have an eruv chatzeros joined together in the eruv. Someone living in the sukkah on sukkahs is considered living in a house, and also it requires being mishtatav to join together, and eruv chatzeros to join together to contribute for the bread, the pas that joins them together in the eruv. He's obligated to join, and if he doesn't join, they can't carry. The other members of the chutzner cannot carry, because it's considered a house. He's considered a householder. So Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev be'eruv u'mezuzah, and the sukkah is chag b'chag, has to have a mezuzah. It's obligated a mezuzah b'maiser, and it's obligated a maiser if the produce is brought into the sukkah. One can only eat from it if the one is mafresh the Yomi Masechet. So you see over here that Rabbi Yehuda holds that a sukkah is chag b'chag. There's an obligation for a mezuzah. And you see that even though it's only used for the 7 days of sukkahs, it's not used all year round. There's a chiyuv for a sukkah. So it's not like the hezber that we said before. So why should this be different than the Lishkos Parhedron? The fact that it's only used 7 days of the year, apparently, does not make a difference in terms of the chiyuv of mezuzah. Perhaps you'll say that this chiyuv over here on Sukkah is only midrabanan. It's not a chiyuv d'oraisa. So it's not like the Lishkos Parhedrin, because here in this Mishnah we're only talking about a chiyuv d'orabanan. No. Whereas you can't say that. Bishlama erev mezuzah k'lamei midrabanan. Bishlama, as far as the halakha is erev mezuzah, perhaps you can say it's midrabanan, it's a chumrah. Ela meiser mi'ika lamei midrabanan. But how can you say that the chiyuv of meiser is a chiyuv d'rabanan and it's not a chiyuv d'oraisa? If that's the case, then you'll dilma asila frusha min a chiyuv al patur or min a patur al chiyuv. If you're going to obligate midrabanan the person to be mafresh when he brings it into the sukkah, well, the person might think that there is a chiyuv midoraisa, it's a me'ikra din a chiyuv, that the sukkah is considered a house, and therefore he might be mafresh from this produce and onto to be mafresh for tevel that was produce was brought into a house which has a chiyuv doraisa, or vice versa. He might be mafresh from the tevel that's brought into a house on this produce that was brought into the sukkah. Now, you can't be mafresh min a patur al chiv patur. In order to make a hafrosha, you have to have tevel that you're taking a portion of it that is a portion of it for the trumas meiser. So you're separating from what is mechuyev something that has a chiyuv. And then the portion that you're mafresh is the trumas meiser, and the remainder becomes chulin, becomes mutter. But you can't be mafresh and say, oh, this will be truma and meiser, and therefore pater this other grain, if the thing that I'm being mafresh, trumas meiser, does not even have a chiyuv min atayra of afrosha. If it's not considered tevel midoraisa to have a chiyuv midoraisa of afrosha, you can't be mafresh a chiyuv al patur or a patur al chiyuv. Then how would the rabbanan have made this chiyuv of afrosha if it's only midorabanan? This could come out. It could come out to have this this takala, this mishap could occur. They wouldn't have made it a din d'rabbanan in such a case, to be mafresh midrabbanan. Elamai, it must be that it's d'oraisa. Therefore, it must be that the sukkah is considered a dir d'oraisa. It's considered a chiyuv d'oraisa. And therefore, the mezuzah also would be a chiyuv d'oraisa. So therefore, you can't say the pshat in Rabbi Huda why the Lishkos Parhedrin did not have a chiyuv d'oraisa of mezuzah, because it was not used year-round. We see the sukkah is only used 7 days of sukkahs, and nevertheless, he holds there's a chiyuv of mezuzah. Hello, Marabaya. He said, B'shiva d'kol yom alei pligi d'mechayv. Everyone agrees that he says that the 7 days that the Kohen Gadol was in the Lishkos Parhedrin, everyone agrees that there was a chiyuv, that there was a chiyuv, that a chiyuv d'oraisa to have the mezuzah. Nobody argues. Abaya suggests that on the 7 days that the Kohen Gadol was actually there, the 7 days before Yom Kippur, there was a chiyuv d'oraisa mezuzah in the Lishka, because it was being used at that time. Even though it's only used for 7 days, it was being used. Ki pligi b'shayim shana. The machlokes is, did the Lishkas Parhedrin have a mezuzah the rest of the year? Rabbanan Tzava, they hold gazrin shayim shana alto shiva. They hold that even though the rest of the year nobody lived there, but there were geyser, and therefore they required a mezuzah all year round, because if it didn't have mezuzah all year round, perhaps people think you don't need it even on the 7 days prior to Yom Kippur when the Kohen Gadol is there. And therefore your geyser. Rabbi Yehuda Savra like gazrin. And Rabbi Yehuda holds, no, we don't make that gzera. We don't make it a gzera that it should be used for that we should require a mezuzah on the rest of the year, because you might forget and not use it and put it in on the 7 days prior to Yom Kippur. What is the reason? Rabbi Yehuda says, because the reason is so that it should not give the appearance that the Kohen Gadol is locked up in jail. That's the reason that we have it. So the Mir explains, so therefore what is the masumat and the dialogue between the Chum and Rabbi Yehuda? The Chum said that according to this pshat, that the mezuzah, not only did the Lishkos Parhedrin have the mezuzah on the 7 days prior to Yom Kippur, it had it the whole year round as a gzera, because otherwise they wouldn't put it in on, we're afraid they might not have it for the 7 days prior to Yom Kippur either. And on that, Rabbi Yehuda Taina, there are Lishkoyos over there. There are many chambers, and the Levium were using it. They didn't have a mezuzah. Now, according to you, if you're making a gezerah that you should have it over there, that we should have it over there, meaning even when you don't use it, well, the other lishkois, when they have the mezuzah and when they use it at nighttime, well, then they should make a gezerah, and even when they don't use it, and in the daytime, also have a mezuzah. But they didn't have a mezuzah in the daytime. Elamai, so you don't make such a gezerah. What is the reason, therefore, that the lishkas parhedron was different? Is because it should not give the appearance that he's locked up in jail. So that is how Abai is learning. But Amrle Rava says you can't learn that way. Vaha sukkahs achag v'chag ketani. The Mishnah is talking about a sukkahs achag on sukkahs. And over there, that's where the machlok is. Over there, Rabbi Yehuda says there's a chiyuv mezuzah, but the Chum say you don't. So we're talking about the sukkahs of Chag b'Chag, and nevertheless, the Rabbanan say there's no chiyuv mezuzah. So therefore, you can't say that l'kuli alma, that just because it's being used for that period of time, that there should be a chiyuv of mezuzah. Therefore, Elamar Rav Mishayim Shana Kolayim Loi Pligi the Betura, he learns differently, and therefore he says no, just the opposite. He says the rest of the year, all year round, everyone is maida, that is Betura, there's no chiyuv mezuzah. Ki Pligi Mishiva Machlokes is on the 7 days before Yom Kippur. The sukkah time l'chud, v'lishka time l'chud, and the sukkah has a different reasoning for the machlokes, and the lishka there's a different reason. What's pshat? Sukkah time l'chud, the sukkah is different because Rabbi Yehuda goes according to his tam the Amar. He said sukkah there is keva b'ina. He says a sukkah is considered a permanent dwelling, and therefore, for instance, Rabbi Yehuda says that a sukkah that's higher than 20 amas tall is higher than 20 amas is kosher, because a sukkah is a permanent dwelling. And therefore, since a sukkah is a permanent dwelling, even though it's for only 7 days, so now we're changing our understanding, we're saying even though it's only for 7 days, but it's a permanent dwelling, and therefore there is a chiyuv mezuzah. But the Rabbanan hold that sukkah is a diras harai. It's a temporary dwelling, and a temporary dwelling does not require a mezuzah, meaning it's not the point of how many days of the year that it's used. Not that it has to be used all year round, but it has to be a permanent dwelling. So Rabbi Yehuda by Sukkah says Sukkah is a permanent dwelling, there's a chiyuv mezuzah. Rabbanan say no, it's only temporary, there's no chiyuv mezuzah. V'lishka time l'chud, now the machlokes by the lishkas parhedron is a different reason. Rabbanan sarvei dira bal karcha shmei dira. Here the kohen gadol is being forced to live over there. He's forced to live over there. The Rabbanan hold dira bal karcha shmei dira. It's considered to be a dwelling, even though he's forced as bal karcha. Nevertheless, it's still considered to be a dira, and there is a chiyuv of mezuzah. There's a chiyuv mezuzah there. Rabbi Yehuda saw a dira bal karcha lo shmei dira, but Rabbi Yehuda says that no, it's a dira bal karcha. It's not a shmei dira. And umid Rabbanu takina law, and the Rabbanan is a takana the Rabbanan shilayim kohen gadol chavish beis asurim, so that people shouldn't say that the kohen gadol is locked in jail. But there's no chiyuv midaraisa for a mezuzah because it's a dir bal karcha. So then the Miri, as he explains, what is the masomat and the dialogue between them? Rabbi Yehuda Tain, it's a Rabbanan, you're saying a dira bal karcha shmei a dira, and that's considered to be a dira. Well, if that's the case, the Levim, there's other lishkois over there, and the Levim guarded over there, and why wouldn't you say that similarly they would have to have a mezuzah? Elamai, you see that a dira bal karcha is lo shmei dira. So that's how we explain Rabbi Yehuda's time. More says, Man Tanul Hadu Tan Rabbanan, who is the Tan who taught the following? And this is Bible Brisa. It says, Kol Sharim Shayu Shem Lo Yilam Mezuzah, all of the gates that were there that led into the Azor did not have a mezuzah, chutz mishar and the corner, except for the shar and the corner. Why was that different? Shalifnei mimenu lishkas parhedron, because beyond it was the lishkas parhedron, meaning so therefore it was the entranceway to the courtyard leading to a dira, to a house, to the lishkas parhedron. So it also had a mezuzah. So Lema Rabbanan Eveloi Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say that this is the Rabbanan and not Rabbi Yehuda. must be that it's according to the Rabbanu who hold that the lishus parhedron is called a dira, it's called a house, and this is the entranceway, the gateway to it is a gateway to a courtyard leading to a house, and it had a mezuzah because the Rabbi Yehuda, because if you would say it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda, he guf exer, the lishus parhedron itself is exera. Val nekim and exera, and should we make exera that the Shar HaNikoner should have a mezuzah where the lishus parhedron itself is only exera, there will be exera. You don't make exera. The Gemara answers, no, afilotem Rabbi Yehuda. You could say it's even Rabbi Yehuda, kula chal exeri. It's all considered to be one gzera. So it's all considered to be part and parcel of the same gzera. The way Rabbeinu Al Yakim explains it is because if you would say that the entranceway, the Shar HaNikoner didn't have mezuzah, well, all diras that the entranceways to courtyards leading to diras do have mezuzah. Why would this not be? Must be because this is not considered a genuine dira. Must be because the Kohen Gadol is locked up in jail. So again, it's part and parcel of the same gzera. We're making the gzera of mezuzah so it should not give the appearance that the Kohen Gadol is locked up in jail. In order to give that genuine appearance, we have to make a mezuzah, an act of mezuzah also on Shar HaNikoner, so it could also be going according to Rabbi Yehuda.